Hey, what's going on? This is The Doug Show. I'm Doug Cunnington, and today it's going to be a little bit of a shorter episode. At least I think so. Just me solo, no interview or anything like that. I wanted to share a couple things. So, number one, I have been doing live streams over on YouTube more often. And those are usually just Q&As. A lot of times I'll just talk about a couple things to get us started, and then people start asking questions. It works out great, and that is the origin of this question. I haven't seen this question before, at least in this form, in a very long time. So the person, I don't remember who it was, but the person asked what the difference was between a site making hundreds per month and a site making thousands per month. And I thought it was pretty good. It was pretty insightful. And maybe I've seen the question, sometime in the past, but usually, unfortunately, a lot of times in the live Q&As, we just see the same questions over and over again. So, to be honest with you, I took a pause from holding those Q&As because I was doing at one point I was doing 2 per week. It was really valuable to build a community and understand what people needed to know. And in fact, I ended up writing a big section over on Niche Site Project, the FAQ section based on all those questions. Don't worry, I am going to answer the question. But before I get into the meat of it, I do want to tell you about some inspiration that sort of hit home with this question. And then basically I listened to the audiobook by Steve Martin called Born Standing Up, A Comic's Life. And I like Steve Martin a lot. I remember him mainly from movies and stuff, but I also remember he was on Saturday Night Live for a little while. And I was not too young. I wasn't even born when Steve Martin was doing stand-up. But I'm going to read a short quote here, and this is right in the beginning of this book. Here it is. I did stand-up comedy for 18 years. 10 of those years were spent learning. 4 years were spent refining, and 4 years were spent in wild success. I was seeking comic originality, and fame fell upon me as a byproduct. The course was more plodding than heroic. And I think that is key to understand. When you look at Steve Martin's career, he was like a movie star. Like I said, that's kind of where I knew him from, and then realized he was on SNL and maybe a little bit of stand-up, but I really didn't know. And the beginning of his career was doing stand-up. And he talked about in the very beginning, he was doing stand-up for empty rooms. Literally, there was no one in there, but he had to perform to get people in the door so they would imagine that there was a show going on in there, and they would come and sit down. And when you think about that, when you think of the 18 years and you think of 10 years spent learning, I mean, that's kind of insane. And when we are thinking about, of course, like most people, I automatically translate whatever I'm thinking about into me. I try to imagine myself doing something. And when you're like, oh, I have 18 years to figure this out, or I have many years to learn, it's like, we don't have to be in such a hurry. And I see it a lot. Well, actually, I was exactly the same way when I got started working online. It's like, you want to do things as quickly as possible. You don't want to waste time. How can we do it faster? In fact, yesterday I was chatting with my VA who's helping me out on Pinterest, and things are going well. Traffic is growing on the Pinterest side. I see things are working, and I see, we'll plateau for a little while and then we'll improve. And I asked a question that I hate. And in fact, when I was asking it, I knew what I was doing. And then I apologized for it. But I said, okay, is there anything we can do to make it go faster? Right? What can we do? We said this is working. What if we do more of that? What happens if we 10x it? Is that going to help, or is that going to hurt it? Now, really what I was after is can we do anything creative maybe that we haven't thought of yet? are we exhausting our resources, or are we just going slower because that's normally what we do? So anyway, I'm meandering a little bit here, but the point is we don't have to be in such a hurry. We actually have more time most of the time. Now, we're all going to die. We don't know when we're going to die, on a serious note. So we really don't know how much time we have. But that said, usually, right, you probably got a pretty good amount of time, and you don't have to be in a hurry. And if you mess up a couple times, as long as it's not like completely irreversible, it's probably a valuable lesson to learn, and it's not the worst thing in the world. Okay, moving on, getting back to the actual question, which is what's the main difference between a site making, say, $200 a month and a site making $2,000 a month? And basically I was like, it's work. Like, however much work someone put into the site, that is a direct reflection on the earnings and the traffic and so on. Are there exceptions? Sure. But most of the time, if someone's making a couple $100 a month, they probably put a, couple $100 worth of effort, figuratively speaking there. They put in some time, and then maybe they stopped working on it, or maybe they weren't, putting as much effort into link building, but they were putting all their effort into content, for example. I hear that a lot. And when you look and you talk to people who are successful, usually they kept going a little harder, and they kept going a little bit longer, and then the payoff was later. And that is one of the things that we forget about when you're talking about like affiliate marketing and making money online, because there were definitely periods. I mean, it's a very young business and business model as far as like online, right? So basically, there were periods of time where you could, start a site, spam like backlinks, have pretty terrible content, or even like spun content that doesn't make sense, and it would potentially rank within days, and you could make a lot of money. And if Google penalized the site or something happened, it didn't really matter much. You could just start another site and do the same thing, and they called it like a churn and burn situation. So you could like churn out a site and burn it to the ground, and it actually didn't matter that much because you could do it again. In fact, you could do a lot of these in parallel, but that was years ago. And times are different now because marketers abuse, things that are working. So those things stop working. And these days, it takes a lot more time. It takes way more time, and the payoff is later. That's the whole point of that analogy there. The payoff is later. So you may be doing work for a while where you're expecting to make a couple $100 a month pretty quick, or maybe a couple thousand, because you're really confident and you feel like you're really smart, and I'm sure you are, and we all are. And you hear about these stories where a college kid figured out how to make $500 a month online in his spare time, or the high school student who I'm going to interview soon, who I can't remember what he got up to. I think it was $100 or $200 a month, but he'll tell us hopefully in a couple weeks here. I'll be able to publish that episode. Basically, the idea is you don't have to be in such a hurry, and if you don't get discouraged too much and you're able to continue to put the time into it, chances are you'll get a bigger payoff at the end. And it's not even that long, right? It's not 10 years of learning like Steve Martin was talking about. It's like if you could put the time in for the first 6 months, you're probably going to see some pretty good growth after you get out of the Google sandbox. In fact, I was just texting with a friend of mine. She was able, I think it's it's April right now when I'm recording this. And her March revenue was like $290. Her site is roughly 6-7 months old. So she's just getting out of the sandbox, the Google sandbox, that is. And in February, she made $100. So like almost a 3x improvement there. And growth is, just looking at her traffic over the last couple of days, she's having quite a bit of growth. Hopefully she'll be on the channel coming up again here soon. That was Christy back from, I think, episode 10. But the point being, she put a ton of effort into the first 6 months, even when it looked like, not much was happening. She was just getting, 10 visitors a day or less. And she just had faith. She trusted me to continue on and was able to, grow pretty quick. And I think because of all the effort that she put in within the first 6 months, she's going to have much more explosive growth coming out of the sandbox, going from 6 months to 12 months to 18 months. This is going to be a big site. Like, she's doing some very unconventional outreach and link building, which is amazing to me, because she's just, taking some ideas and like, oh, what if we try this? Maybe we'll be able to share some of that in the future as well. Okay. So overall, it's the amount of work that you put in. And in the live stream on that YouTube video that I did, basically, I had a good analogy. A couple of people complimented me on it, but it was like working out. And if you want to be a bodybuilder and you want to get in good shape, there's no secret, right? You have to go to the gym often. That was Georgie there shaking. You have to go to the gym often. You have to lift some fucking heavy weights, and you have to eat right. You also have to get some rest in there too. Rest is very important, but even eating the amount of food that you need to eat in the proper, macro proportions and all that stuff, that's really hard to, choke down that amount of protein. And basically, everyone knows the secret, right? You have to lift heavy weights and eat right. You have to put in the time. There's no shortcut, right? There are, smarter ways to do things, but there's no shortcut at all. You just have to put the time in, whether it's stand-up comedy, an affiliate site, for example, writing. Some people want to improve their writing, especially for their own sites, or maybe you're a writer and you just want to improve. I can tell you personally, I didn't think I was a very good writer at all, but I have been blogging and writing content now in a different, format from business writing from, I guess, like mid 2013. So we're coming up on about 6 years of me like writing and trying to improve. And by the way, I was distracted a good chunk of the time. So I probably could be a much better writer if I wasn't doing so many YouTube videos, for example, or doing this podcast. But it's all, everything's related. It's all communication. But to be able to, write well, you just have to put in the time. You have to, look at your material critically and try to improve. Again, there's no secret. If you want to write better, you have to, edit hard, and you have to spend time writing. No shortcuts, no real shortcuts unless you can, get coaching or editing from a high-end a more experienced person, that sort of thing. Okay, so I think that is the main point that I wanted to make today. So if you are new to the show, thanks for listening. I do appreciate it. There's a bunch of other episodes out there, and I encourage you to check them out. We'll just leave it at that. We'll catch you next time. All right. Thanks a lot for joining me on The Doug Show. I really do appreciate you taking the time. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. I have a ton of other episodes out there covering lots of different topics. Sometimes I just tell stories. If you are a long-time listener, I appreciate you too. If you haven't left a review, that is awesome, because now you have an opportunity to leave a review, and that would be totally cool, and I would really appreciate it. If you're looking to get started with affiliate marketing or making money online or anything like that, you should go over to nichesiteproject.com. That is my blog. Once you're over there, you just click the green button, enter your name and email address, and then I'll send you a bunch of cool stuff. I'll send you templates, some motivational emails, and I think there's probably just some random emails that I send out there also. So we'll catch you next time on The Doug Show. Thanks.